Libertarianism has developed to this point, discovered the problem and defined the solution: the state versus the market. The market is the sum of all voluntary human action. Thank you, Ludwig von Mises. If one acts non-coercively, one is part of the market. Thus did economics become part of libertarianism. Libertarianism investigated the nature of man to explain his rights deriving from non-coercion. It immediately followed that man, woman, child, Martian, etc., had an absolute right to this life and other property, and no right to the life or property of others. Thus did objective philosophy become part of libertarianism. Libertarianism asked why society was not libertarian now and found the state, its ruling class, its camouflage, and the heroic historians striving to reveal the truth. Thus did revisionist history become part of libertarianism. Psychology, especially as developed by Thomas Szasz as counter-psychology, was embraced by libertarians seeking to free themselves from both state restraint and self-imprisonment, seeking an art form to express the horror potential of the state and extrapolate the many possibilities of liberty. Libertarianism found science fiction already in the field. From the political, economic, philosophical, psychological, historical, and artistic realms, the partisans of liberty saw a whole, integrating their resistance with others elsewhere, and they came together as their consciousness became aware. Thus did libertarians become a movement. The libertarian movement looked around and saw the challenge. Everywhere, our enemy, the state. From the ocean's depth past arid desert outposts to the distant lunar surface, in every land, people, tribe, and nation, and in the individual mind. Some sought immediate alliance with other opponents of the power elite to overthrow the state's present rulers. Radical Libertarian Alliance, 1968 to 71. Some sought immediate confrontation with the state's agents. Radical Libertarian Action Movement, 1968 to 72, later revived briefly as a proto-movement of the libertarian left. Some pursued collaboration with those in power who offered less oppression in exchange for votes. Citizens for a Restructured Republic, 1972, made up of Radical Libertarian Alliance members disillusioned with revolution. And some dug in for long-term enlightenment of the populace to build and develop the movement. Society for Individual Liberty, 1969 to 89, now merged with Libertarian International to the International Society for Individual Liberty. Also Rampart College, now defunct, and the Foundation for Economic Education and Free Enterprise Institute, all of whom were around before the libertarian population explosion of 1969. Everywhere, a libertarian alliance of activists sprang up. Most important, the California Libertarian Alliance, 1969 to 73. The name is still kept alive for sponsorship of conferences and is also used in the United Kingdom. The state's higher circles were not about to yield their plunder and restore property to their victims at the first sign of opposition. The first counterattack came from anti-principles already planted by the corrupt intellectual caste: defeatism, retreatism, minarchism, collaborationism, gradualism, monocentrism, and reformism, including accepting state office to improve statism. All of these anti-principles, deviations, heresies, self-destructive contradictory tenets, etc., will be dealt with later. Worst of all is partyarchy, the anti-concept of pursuing libertarian ends through statist means, especially political parties. A libertarian party was the second counterattack of the state unleashed on the fledgling libertarians, first as a ludicrous oxymoron, then as an invading army. As a ludicrous oxymoron, the first Libertarian Party was set up by Gabriel Aguilar and Ed Butler in California in 1970 as a hollow shell to gain media access. Aguilar, a Gallambosian, was staunchly anti-political. Even Nolan's LP was mocked and scorned by such as Murray Rothbard in the first year of its existence. As an invading army, the Libertarian Party that eventually organized nationally and ran John Hospers and Tony Nathan for president and vice president in 1972 was first organized by David and Susan Nolan in December 1971 in Colorado. Dave Nolan was a Massachusetts YAFer, Young Americans for Freedom, YAFer who had broken with YAF back in 1967 and missed the 1969 climax at St. Louis. He remained conservative and minarchist right up to this first edition. Although the Nolans were rather innocent, other early organizations and candidates often so, the debate on the party question began immediately. New Libertarian Notes attacked the LP concept in spring 1972 and ran a debate between Nolan and Konkin just before the election. New Libertarian Notes 15. By the 1980 presidential campaign, the Nolans had broken with the LP leadership of Ed Crane and his candidate Ed Clark, who ran a high-powered, high-financed, traditional vote-chasing and platform-trimming campaign. The third counterattack was an attempt by one of the 10 richest capitalists in the United States to buy the major libertarian institutions, not just the party, and run the movement as other plutocrats run all other political parties in capitalist states. Charles G. Koch, Wichita oil billionaire. Through his relatives, foundations, institutes, and centers, had set up, bought up, or bought out the following from 1976 to 79. Murray Rothbard in his Libertarian Forum. Libertarian Review from Robert Keffert, edited by Roy A. Childs. Students for Libertarian Society, SLS, run by Milton Mueller. Center for Libertarian Studies, Rothbard leaning, and Joe Peden. Inquiry, edited by Williamson Evers. Cato Institute, and various Koch funds, foundations, and institutes. Named the Coctopus in New Libertarian 1, February 1978. It was first attacked in print by Edith Ephron in the conservative libertarian publication Reason, along with allegations of an anarchist conspiracy. The movement of the libertarian left cut away from Ephron's anti-anarchist ravings and rushed to support her on her key revelation of the growth of monocentrism in the movement. In 1979, the Coctopus took control of the National Libertarian Party at the Los Angeles Convention. David Koch, Charles' brother, openly bought the VP nomination for $500,000. The degree of success those statist counterattacks had in corrupting libertarianism led to a splintering of the movement's left and the despairing paralyzation of others. As disillusionment grew within libertarianism, the disillusioned sought answers to this new problem, the state within as well as the state without. How do we avoid being used by the state and its power elite? That is, they asked, how can we avoid deviations from the path of liberty when we know there are more than one? The market has many paths to production and consumption of a product, and none are perfectly predictable. So even if one tells us how to get from here, statism, to there, liberty, how do we know that is the best way? Already some are dredging up the old strategies of movements long dead, movements with other goals. New paths are indeed being offered. Back to the state. Murray Rothbard broke with the Coctopus soon after the 79 LP convention, and most of his close allies were purged, such as Williamson Evers of Inquiry. CLS was cut off from Koch funding. The Libertarian Forum began attacking Koch. Rothbard and young Justin Raimondo set up a new radical caucus of the LP. The first one, 1972 to 74, was run by progenitors of New Libertarian Alliance as a recruiting tactic and as a way to destroy the party from within. Although Rothbard was moved to ask, "Is Sam Konkin right?" in his July 1980 speech to an RC dinner in Orange County, The RC strategy is to reform the LP using New Left and neo-Marxist tactics. Betrayal, inadvertent or planned, continues. It need not. While no one can predict the sequence of steps that will unerringly achieve a free society for free-willed individuals, one can eliminate in one slash all those that will not advance liberty, and applying the principles of the market unwaveringly map out a terrain to travel. There is no one way, one straight line graph to liberty, to be sure, but there is a family of graphs, a space filled with lines that will take this libertarian to his goal of the free society. Shit.